Welcome to UWS Weekly, a show that is dedicated to covering United Women's Soccer, a national pro-am league with your host, Jonathan Ward. Each and every week, we will highlight players, supporters, and staff of the clubs we all pride ourselves to support in North America. The UWS is a league that is committed to advancing women's soccer. Good evening, soccer fans, and welcome to the UWS studio and to UWS Weekly, a show powered by Rain Total Body Fuel and dedicated to the best Pro-Am women's league in the world. In league news, the 2021 season kicked off this past weekend with match day 1, and it was not to be missed. This past Saturday saw Midwest United defeat Lansing United, handing Lansing only their second regular season loss in the club's history with a 4-2 win. Over in Joliet, Illinois, the Lady Steel came out victorious in a hard-fought 2-1 win over Kicks out of Chicago, and Corktown putting up 8 against the Risers of Muskegon. This weekend is no different in the hashtag Summer of Soccer for the UWS that features 11 matches, and we will be discussing many of those matches on the Uws Kickoff Show, powered by Rain Total Body Fuel, Saturday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern. So make sure you are looking for that announcement coming tomorrow, as our featured match, along with interviews from both sides, is going to be FC Buffalo and the Rochester Lancers. That will be playing Sunday at the Aquinas Institute Sunday evening. This evening, I'm excited for tonight's guest, featuring Muskegon Risers supporters group, Port City Supporters. This show is more than just our member clubs. It's about the communities these clubs represent, and this SG is passionate about Riser soccer. Representing Port City Supporters this evening, I'm pleased and honored to introduce Darby Sagala and founder John Whitmer. Good evening to both of you, and thank you for joining me this evening. How are you two doing? John?
Of course. Yeah, doing well. Doing well. Thanks for having us.
Doing great, Jonathan. Thanks for you for having us on this evening.
So, John and Darby, tell us a little bit about yourselves and how you got involved in the game that we all love.
Yeah. Who's first? You want to go, Darby?
Okay, yeah, I'll go. Like a lot of people around Muskegon, which is traditionally more of a football and hockey town, I grew up playing soccer, but then my passions drifted a little bit more towards hockey. Coming around 2010 or so, the Uruguayan national team during the World Cup really caught my attention, and I kind of got back into things because streaming became easier, options became easier in terms of watching the game, all forms of the game. And one of those opportunities was also watching the United States women's national team in the coming years, and there is some great stuff played there as well. For the most part, my career playing ended when I was a freshman in high school. Like that was it. And up until that World Cup, I really hadn't reignited my passion for soccer. I picked a team that was in a city like Muskegon to follow. I picked Swansea City. It seemed like a similar place, so I was like, okay, I'm on board. So after that, Detroit City came along. I followed them up until the Risers were founded, and up until I found John, and yeah, the rest is really history from there. I've been a passionate supporter ever since I've found like-minded people to share my passion with.
Yeah, amen. Yeah, I have a pretty similar story. Grew up playing soccer. My story diverges a little bit. I did some study abroad. I was in Edinburgh, Scotland, and hooked on to Hibernian FC there, one of the perennial third-place contenders in the Scottish Premier League, and saw the supporter passion there, kind of fell in love, and like Darby, I was living in Detroit when Detroit City FC was founded, and came back home to Muskegon right around the time that the Risers came on, and got rid of my support for Detroit City FC and fell in love with the Risers.
So for those who are not familiar with soccer culture, what is a supporters group?
Yeah, a supporters group is, I think they're kind of the cut above. They're a little bit more passionate than your typical soccer fan. I think most supporters would say that they bleed the colors of their club, and they're there to cheer on their team, to do whatever they can to help their team win.
Yeah, it's a passionate sort of support, and it's something that in Muskegon we've had a lot of history with sports teams. It's what makes our city a little bit different from other towns our size. It's only a city of 35,000, 40,000 people. Surrounding areas maybe 170,000, but we've had 50 years of professional minor league hockey up until about a decade ago. We've had the winningest high school football team in Michigan history, the 6th winningest in the nation. Like we have huge support for these things, but it was always kind of a tacit support, kind of, yeah, let's go and we'll hoot and holler and we'll cheer, but there wasn't, the things that come along with a supporter group, like the singing, like the drumming, smoke bombs, huge banners, things of that nature. Really, the closest parallel I could draw to it is the minor league hockey team always had a booster club, but that was usually made up of people that were retirees gathering like pots and pans for players that would come in from abroad so they could, live cheaply in their apartment for the season and, hook them up with jobs and things like that. This is a little bit of a different slant on that. This is more about injecting the passion and enthusiasm to everyone else in the crowd to a certain degree, and, everyone else in the community.
John, I think you kind of answered it. My next question was, isn't every fan a supporter? But is there any difference between a supporters group and a regular supporter?
I think that the supporters group, they're going a little bit above and beyond, right? They're there to not only watch the game, but kind of will their team to win. They to say that they live and die by their teams a little bit excessive, but I think that they're just a little bit more passionate. They're a step above in the passion department than your typical fan, your typical supporter.
Right. There's a bit of a different lifestyle, right? For instance, my garage is filled to the brim on all sides with just swaths of fabric, like just crates of spray paint cans, flags. There are other people in the group that, they do things like they have cornhole, sets designed specifically for the team, and a grill that's team colors, and just that extra little mile, all those little details. And, everybody in the group kind of does their own thing, but it adds up to a lot extra. And I'll use going to Corktown this past weekend, for example. There were people there, and they really cared about their team, right? But aside from when the goals were scored, and even after the 4th goal, like there wasn't any applause after some of those goals at all. Like it was completely silent. What we do is we ensure that never happens, like that never occurs, that everybody knows that we're behind them 100%, all of the game, all of the time.
Nice. Hey, John, what drove you to create the Port City Supporters?
Yeah, Darby touched on it a little bit. That very first game, the original men's team in 2015, it was almost like just a polite atmosphere, like we were at a golf tournament or something. People politely clapping when the goal scored, or a big save. They're just kind of, oh, that's great, guys, good job. And being in that European kind of football atmosphere, I was like, we got to step it up. We got to get this going a little bit. So my brother-in-law saw the same thing, was like, yeah, we got to step that up. And so we just created a Facebook group or a Facebook page, and Darby caught on, and a few others kind of tagged along, and the rest is history. We've been waking up with raspy voices the next day ever since. So.
Right. And we know better. Some of us are musical people. Like at this point, a large portion of the group are like former punk rockers, people who know how to treat their voices okay when it, they're getting loud, but still, like, I'll go into work the next week and my voice will still be like, hey. It's enthralling. But yeah, like John said, that first game, and my expectations were super low for a team here in Muskegon. I was like, all right, if there are 100 people there, this is going to be cool. And I think there were probably about 2,000 people there that first game. Like there wasn't enough room in the stadium. People were standing against the fence and sitting in lawn chairs ringed all the way around. And I was just like, whoa, this blows my mind. But kind of like John, I was just like, well, we got the Muskegon thing going where we might do the let's go Risers and maybe a couple of times and cheer for the goals, and that's it. And I was like, it would be really cool to, hear and see more. And luckily my friend Travis, who's also in the group, was a mutual acquaintance of John and introduced us. And yeah, hit it off. Yeah. The rest was history.
Right.
So what is the overall mission of the group? There's groups and there's, extra that comes with being a part of that. What is the mission of the Port City supporters?
Yeah, I would say it's pretty short and sweet. We're supporters of the Muskegon Risers, right? But that's kind of morphed into other people's passions for this community. Darby sponsors a cleanup in Muskegon Heights, which is part of the Muskegon community. I'm involved with Muskegon Soccer Club, a youth rec club. And so we all have kind of this passion for the city, for the community of Muskegon. And I think Port City supporters, while it's a supporter group for the Muskegon Risers, that name, Port City supporters, Port City is a nickname for Muskegon. And so it kind of also is a double entendre for everybody that wants to support the Muskegon community on a wider level. So while our mission statement, if we even have one, I don't know if we officially do or not, is to support the Muskegon Risers, Port City supporters are Muskegon supporters as well.
Right, absolutely. And like John said, that passion, it shows different forms. I'll do the cleanup. We have somebody who's in charge of designing the TIFO, and their vision kind of goes from there. We'll have people that come in and kind of fill in the blanks for them, but they do the art. We want to support the team in any way we can. And to give an example of what that means, one of those things that we did was John originally designed a logo for the group, and it was kind of old English script. It was nice enough, but we wanted something that looked more official. So John knew that Uws Rodriguez, who was a player for the Risers, did graphic design. And so we brought him in and he consulted with us to, make a logo that none of us had the talent to do. None of us had, the vision to do, but he used his talents, and we wanted to help him via, what our vehicle was, which is supporting the Risers. And now he's gone on to not just design that logo, but he has also designed the team's crest. He's designed many murals all around town. He recently just got another commission for one that's right on Pure Marquette Beach. So we've helped spur the change that's part of the Risers mission of making an economic impact, a visible impact, by literally supporting people in the team and what they're doing.
So we have a question from Facebook. We take questions as we go. Catherine Paquette asks, how has COVID changed your supporting tactic? And we'll go ahead and we'll answer that as we break up a little bit here. How has COVID changed your supporting tactic, boys?
That's a really good question. So when things rolled around last year, we knew we wanted to keep things rolling at least a little bit on social media, like keep people aware of what we were doing. So in lieu of being able to go to games, the Risers played a ENPSL season, a virtual season, and we supported that. And we also kept on making TIFO and kept on making banners. And while you can't really make player-specific things during a pandemic because you don't know who's going to be there next season, right? You can make generalized banners. Another thing that we decided to do is we decided to, individually go out into the community later in the year before the arena season. So like September, October, and approach businesses and be like, hey, you know, you want to do a sticker trade? We'll give you one of our stickers or a riser sticker in return for one of your stickers, and we'll stick it on our drum to, you know, show support of the community. And that made businesses and people in the community aware of the team that wouldn't otherwise have been aware of the team. So we did a couple of different things there. As far as we've only had a couple of arena games since then, you know, not too much has changed. Not as many people came, which was to be expected. We, you know, spaced out more, but our engagement changed in a way that made us kind of directly engage the community a little bit more instead of socially, which is the opposite of what you would have thought. But when you can go into a place that's not crowded and talk to somebody one-on-one, I think you're able to get a depth there that doesn't necessarily come across on social media. So we've done that, and we also, you know, we've done the cleanups and whatnot of late, which is nice to get out there out in the open. It's, you know, it's a spaced out thing. It's something that everybody can participate in and not have to worry about transmitting things. So yeah, we've taken on a few different things. We all definitely miss and look forward to what was the normal before and what will be the normal in this sometime after this.
So I have to ask, what team or other supporter group do you have the most passionate exchanges with, gentlemen?
Grand Army.
Well,
FC. That would be my choice.
Well, yeah, but there is the fact that the Grand Army doesn't really exist in the form that it existed in once. And, you know, that's not something that gives us joy. That's something that's a barometer for soccer in West Michigan, how GRFC has fallen off. We don't like to see that because it's a canary in the coal mine. If it can happen to a team that was drawing 6,000 fans a game during its peak, you know, it can definitely happen to us, right? And so the lack of engagement and the lack of banner is something kind of sore to see. But historically, it would be the Grand Army. We haven't had a ton of, you know, banter and exchanges with groups. We've done a little bit with the Flood, who support Milwaukee Torrent, but we were going to do a kind of cool fundraiser with Elmwood Elite, who are the supporter group for Oakland County FC. We were going to do a charity game right before COVID hit. You know, we were going to collect socks to donate to Every Woman's Place, which is a shelter here in Muskegon, and do some sort of trade-off down the road. But that hasn't been allowed to happen. And, you know, the part of why I, you know, give pause to the question is because by and large, we've been isolated from most supporter groups. We haven't been able to play in the leagues with the Detroit Cities, the AFC Ann Arbors, the GRFCs. We've been playing against teams like Carpathia, and, you know, like we go to a place, an away game, and there are 20 people there. You know, we go to, say, you know, those sort of places, and, you know, we want to have those exchanges, but the base isn't really there. You know, we end up having some polite conversations and learning some stuff about the club history and whatnot, but we don't have those intense exchanges. And moving to UWS is one of the things we really look forward to, is the fact that there are active supporter groups here, and that's not something we've been able to engage in by and large due to historically who the club has played against, and it's something we're really looking forward to in the future.
John, how many official members do you have that are part of Port City Supporters?
Yeah, we don't really do official members. You know, there's no applications or dues being paid. Gosh, what do you think, Darby? I'd say, you know, I'll probably refer to them as regulars, and probably around 10 regulars, you know, that you can count on to be at every home game. But
yeah,
you know,
there's a rotating cast of about 20 people. Any given game will average about half of those people kind of going in and out, which is kind of cool and unusual. And it's another thing that's kind of tied to the history of sport in Muskegon. Is like it's always been a more casual thing as opposed to a diehard, I have to be there every single match sort of game. And that's part of the mentality that we're we're seeking to change. We're seeking to have people not just at every men's game, but at every men's arena game, every women's arena game, every women's outdoor game. So we want to support the club in their entire mission, as opposed to just what they originally set out to do. And that's something that we're hoping, as time goes on and we get more people actively involved, we'll see growth.
How do you make the game day experience fun and exciting for fans and players, guys?
Yeah, beer certainly helps. We like to have some beer on hand, but we do offer food. We've done a lot of interesting things. I remember one arena game. In downtown Muskegon, they have these like Fun Friday kind of things where people see street performers and that kind of thing. And one time they moved it indoors to the arena before one of the Risers games. And we had like this little kind of obstacle course set up where we gave away little trinkets to the kids that played. So I really feel like we try to do these unique, fun, interesting things to get people to kind of attracted to us.
Right. Playing off of what John said, originally, before we got super invested into the group, what we used instead of proper drums were pickle buckets. I used to work at a restaurant, and so pickle buckets were readily available. Kids latched onto those like they were wildfire. They loved them. They made a lot of noise. So, we rent out buckets and things like that. We'll during the arena season, but also during the outdoor season, we'll sell vuvuzelas because kids love that. And aside from getting the children engaged, we also do the traditional outdoor stuff, like we light off smoke bombs, we make huge tifos. John alluded to, we do like a pregame grill. We tried the pregame bar thing one year. We found it didn't really suit our style. We found that doing the pregame grill gave us more visibility. And while it was cool to be at the bar and engage people we might not have otherwise engaged, we found that we didn't see as many people that we were at the bar with coming to the game as many people that were getting excited about the game at the pregame tailgate. Well, we also did like a march to the match, and we might end up doing that paired with the tailgate. So we're willing to try anything. We're willing to listen to all sorts of ideas and, go from all corners, as opposed to having just like one strict way.
So Catherine comes back with another question. Has the move to UWS, do you think it's going to, obviously you guys have not had a home match yet, but do you think it's going to increase the appeal of getting supporters to the women's game?
Yeah, I think just the idea of a women's team in general really ignited some passion in Muskegon. I sent you some pictures of what the attendance looked like at Cairns Stadium. The summer of 2019, when the Risers had their initial women's game versus Muskegon Community College, was the most attended game of the year. We haven't had anything in Muskegon to support in terms of women's adult sport since the 1950s, since the Muskegon Lassies of the All-American Women's Baseball League that was made famous by the movie A League of Their Own. And that's lifetimes ago for people. There aren't a lot of people around who remember that. So there was a thirst for that. And when we saw on social media when that came around that there was a thirst for that, and even before that, people asked the club questions. I host a weekly radio show here in Muskegon on a small power station, and we have the Risers on occasionally. And I think it was the second time we had ever had them on. We had people call up and ask questions, and the best question would get a season ticket for the year. We did a giveaway. And the question that caught my attention and caught Matt, the general manager of the club's attention, was, when are you going to start a women's team? And that was 2018. And he said, probably 3 to 5 years we've been looking at it, and it's something we want to do. And lo and behold, the circumstances just kind of lined up the next year with our gap year to transition to NPSL for the men's side, where there was the time to be able to plan and think about how we're going to do this. And they ended up having an exhibition game, and lo and behold, 3 years on from there, 2021, we are in a league. And I think it's something that's energized the fan base. I think you see a different set of people come out for those games, at least the 2 games so far, than you would have otherwise just for the men's team. And so that also excites us as supporters to see new people coming out and see people out that weren't engaging with the club before, engaging due to that. It's yeah.
So you guys said you don't collect dues, so that kind of my next question had revolved around how do you charging and what do you use those funds for? But what do you do in the community to draw awareness to your causes as a supporters group as well as the club?
Yeah, social media has been huge for us, but we don't collect dues. But I feel like Darby's the master of unique fundraisers. Like you mentioned, we had the pickle buckets. We would rent those out as $2, for the kids to bang on them. They could bring them back to their seat and bang on them. When Juvenal Rodriguez designed our logo, we had stickers made. We sold those. So there's selling vuvuzelas. There's a number of things that we do to raise funds and raise awareness at the same time.
Right. We raffled off a ball from the inaugural women's arena game, and that got a lot of attention. We'll raffle off just random things like cups that say "Rise and Grind" that we happen to find at a store. That's the team's motto, "Rise and Grind." But something like that, just unusual things. If we have an extra scarf between the group that isn't getting used, that's been sitting there for a while, that's something we can raffle off. We definitely collect bottles from the tailgates and from everywhere else and kind of put them into a slush fund to be able to do maintenance on the drums and buy those smoke bombs and things like that. We definitely want to engage the community more once things get a little bit more back to normal. Maybe do something along the line of a kill the keg type event where we're able to raise money for the smoke bombs. But we also want to raise money for the community. We want to do things for the community. Back in with the events that transpired in Minneapolis last year, we raised money to give to local causes in Minneapolis in solidarity with Minneapolis City FC. We did that based on how many goals the virtual team scored on a given night. And I think overall we ended up donating about $1,000 over the course of the season with that. So we're not just looking to raise money to operate for ourselves, but we're looking to try and engage the parts of our community. And that's inspired by what the Risers did when they initially came here. John kind of alluded to the fact earlier that I do a cleanup in Muskegon Heights, and Muskegon Heights is a very, very poor area. It's the side of town that I lived in for 27 years. It's where I'm from. It's near and dear to me. And the very first thing that the Risers did before they even kicked a ball was they started a summer youth program in Muskegon Heights. And there hadn't been any of any kind there in a decade at all, like not kickball or baseball or anything, but they went in and they rolled their sleeves up and they made it happen right away. And that's another one of the things that endeared the club to me initially. And it's something, the spirit of that is something that we strive to carry onwards as a group as well.
John, what makes the Port City supporters different from others around the country? Obviously, there's many of supporter culture in the UWS, in the NPSL, in the USL. What separates you guys from others?
Yeah, we like to get weird. We do weird chants. We'll turn anything into a chant. Somebody might get some fries with queso on it, and that'll become a chant.
We've been chanting about crypto for years.
Right. Yeah. Which what does that mean? Who knows? We also took and Darby, you have to remind me of the club in England, but they have "Don't swear, please don't swear" sign over there.
It was a non-league club. I can't remember the name of it, but it was just on an old green dugout in white lettering, and it was just some lower league, non-league club. I can't remember the name off the top of my head. I have it written down somewhere in the bowels of my text archives for Port City supporters. But yeah, just said, please don't swear. And we kind of took that and we morphed it into a sign that we can hang up the opposing team's name up for every game. And it's just kind of a funny thing. I think it's going to be a really funny thing when Detroit City visits us. Yeah, we have a banner that says feelings and kindness. It's just kind of an off the wall thing. We like to do things that are kind of distracting and make you scratch your head. We have a Storm Area 51 banner. Things that you normally wouldn't see, just things that make you question, what are these people thinking?
Right.
Nice. So let's talk about the club a little bit. Let's get to know the Muskegon Risers UWS side. Provide me some insight into the women's team. If you could, give us an idea of what their makeup is like.
So by and large, the makeup of the team is Division II players, Division II college players who are still currently playing. For the most part, that looks, they're kind of on the young side. There's a lot of freshmen. There are some sophomores and juniors and seniors sprinkled in there. But a lot of these players are players from the general West Michigan area, including Muskegon, Grand Rapids, and Ottawa County area, which is kind of a, just a general metropolitan area where everybody is kind of intermingled. A lot of these players, funny enough, their club side before they went to college was Midwest United. So you see a lot of that. A lot of our players come from the local schools of Davenport University and Aquinas College in particular. There are a few players from Northern Michigan University, and a fun story about that. We played the Muskegon Community College team, not just for the outdoor exhibition game, but for an indoor exhibition game in the winter of 2019-2020, before things got shut down. And one of the coaches for Northern Michigan had a few players on our team and was watching the video of the game and offered 2 scholarships to players from Muskegon Community College. Their names were Josie Boss and Savannah Dreisinga. So due to that, they got that exposure from the Risers game, and they kind of parlayed that into furthering their college soccer careers, which is definitely what the Risers are aiming to do. What the Risers are aiming to achieve with the women's team is give greater exposure to players in the area that might be overlooked by your Midwest Uniteds, your Lansing Uniteds. Build something with players that are a bit younger and turn that into a strong base over time.
What was it like to see the ladies on the pitch this weekend? Soccer has been obsolete for many parts of the country over the past few months. What was it like to finally see Muskegon Risers take the pitch this past Saturday or Sunday?
As I alluded to earlier, part of being a Risers fan meant watching a team play either an independent schedule or a schedule in a league with a lot of clubs that didn't have a lot of support. Now, some of those teams were stellar, right? Some of those teams kicked our butt up and down the field every time, like with what happened with Corktown. But the fact that we're in a league, there are women who are here to work hard and be proud to represent Muskegon in a league setting, it gave my heart joy. And, every time one of those goals went in, I had a bit of sorrow, but that sorrow was quickly overcome by, realizing the fact that the club is growing in leaps and bounds and that this is only the beginning. This is only the base. And, this is what you want to see. You want to see your team compete against the best, because that's how you build and that's how you become stronger and that's how you become the best, right? And so while seeing, the defeat in the fashion that happened wasn't ideal, it was still overall for me a positive experience.
John, what about you?
Yeah, it's historic. Like Darby alluded to, we haven't had professional women's team to support in over 70 years. So it's an historic thing to have a women's team in a league setting, just established to represent Muskegon is just huge.
Obviously, it wasn't the result that anyone who was associated with Muskegon wanted. How do you think players look past this this last match and move on to the next game?
Yeah, I think every single one of us playing sports, playing something has gotten our butts kicked, right? In some form or fashion. It's one game. It's over and done with. Come back with a fresh perspective on things. Is the first away game. Is the first game that they've really played together. Just come back strong and see what we can do the rest of the season.
So why are
Okay. So we kind of alluded to it earlier, but the support here in Muskegon, there aren't many places that have the level of support that the Risers do. We kind of alluded to the downfall of GRFC and the fact that they're playing in a place without stands now because they can't really justify renting out Hausman Field like they used to be able to. And, that's sad. But on the flip side of that, the biggest support that the Risers are going to see, aside from what they see this weekend in Detroit City, is in Muskegon. Like, we're going to be the loudest crowd. We're going to be the most behind them. And this team has already experienced this twice. Now, it was 2 years ago at this point, but they know what to expect coming home. They know what kind of energy is going to be there. They know what kind of backing they're going to get from a city that's just the size of a pin drop compared to most places. We're up against places like Chicago, Detroit. I mean, even Lansing's more than twice our size. Grand Rapids is many times our size. But this community has always and continues to punch well above its weight in many aspects. And I think the fact that, they went to Corktown and there were only 40 people in the stands and they got beat down is only going to drive them further when they have the tremendous atmosphere this weekend in Detroit and when they have the tremendous atmosphere on the 22nd coming back to Muskegon for the inaugural game.
John, why are they known as the Risers?
Yeah, we have a sculpture downtown called Muskegon Together Rising. So that's where the name comes from, but it's also representative of Muskegon, generally speaking, a town much like Detroit that's had to reinvent itself. We were created in the lumber era, and when all the lumber left, we had industry kind of pick up the torch there, and with many other Rust Belt cities, once industry kind of died off, we've had to reinvent ourselves in other ways. So we've just always in Muskegon had to be risers, keep rising up, keep rising above all issues that we have. So that's kind of a name that represents, I think, the culture of Muskegon really well, but also alludes to that really sweet sculpture that we've got downtown Muskegon.
Right. The sculpture was inspired by a poem from the 1920s from Douglas Malash, who was known as the Lumberman's poet, who was from Muskegon. It's "Arise, Muskegon, thou queen of the harbors, arise and claim thy estate. No longer thy sawmills singing thy arbors, yet echoes an anthem more sure and more great." And so you may have seen the hashtag Queens of the Harbor in relation to some of our United Women's Soccer posts, and that's where that hashtag comes from, and that's where the inspiration for the statue Muskegon Together Rising comes from. And that statue was put into downtown during a time where we had just knocked the mall down, which was the center of the downtown. Was the second time they had basically knocked half the downtown down in 50 years because they had knocked all the old buildings down to build the mall, right? So Muskegon was just beginning at that time to undergo a transformation that continues today, billions of dollars of investment and willpower and, just awesome change in the community that the Risers have helped spur themselves. When the Risers, went into the arena, initially were invited to play there, the city was considering knocking it down because all that was going on was hockey, and hockey wasn't doing too hot anymore. So the Risers, got some good crowds. They got the city to invest in putting permanent goals in the arena. And, we, to this day, we play and we draw well. There's an arena football team there now as well. And so these little things, these incremental changes add up, and that's what the Risers name is about.
What role does the club play in the community? What do they do off the pitch in order to kind of draw interest or even provide help to those in need?
Go ahead, Darby.
Right, we kind of alluded to it earlier. The Muskegon Heights outreach that we talked about before they even kicked the ball. They have a Risers Read program, which is a youth summer reading program that incentivizes youth in the area to read, and in exchange they're able to get tickets to Risers games for that. There are lots of the standard club will come to your school sort of thing, and players will do individual camps and that sort of thing as well. But there are lots of things going on with the city, like the renovation for the arena, and the arena is a historic place that means a lot to many in Muskegon, and that was a key thing for sure. There's a lot going on behind the scenes. I'm not sure how much we're supposed to talk about, that there are some exciting things coming up with the Risers investing in the community in terms of facilities, in terms of improving facilities for soccer around town in various city areas. But there's a lot of that's been in the works for quite a while. That's just about to come to fruition. So it's multifaceted, kind of like how the team is multifaceted in terms of their mission, in terms of not just being an indoor team or an outdoor team or a women's team or a men's thing. It's all of those things combined, right? So being part of the supporter group means that we're not just supporting the club, but we're supporting that mission.
So speaking of a mission, what is the mission of the club, Muskegon Risers?
So we've touched on it a little bit earlier, but it's to provide economic and social change through the game of soccer. That's the neat way of summing up. I don't have it memorized off the top of my head, but if you pulled it up from the Risers website, it would read something along those lines. And thus far you've seen that change. And another thing that's happening right now with our stadium is we're going to be pitching in this weekend to help improve that stadium, which not only improves it for the Risers, but also improves it for Muskegon Catholic Central, who utilizes that field. It allows the small youth camps that take place on that field via the Risers to be more viable, because the field's more viable, so it's able to withstand more use. So it's bringing tangible change and not just talking about change. It's about integrating the club in the community, seeing somebody like Ube go out there and do their thing. There is a member of the women's team who is able to get a professional connection due to playing for the team. I can't remember her name off the top of my head, and it's going to bug me all day long. But seeing those connections and seeing that tangible change is what the club provides.
So before we get into hot seat questions, where Joe has been putting together some hot takes, tell me what community means to each of you. John, go ahead and start us off.
Okay. Gosh, community, I just always think about it in terms of Muskegon. And so community to me means this collective grit that Muskegon has. And Darby used the phrase punch above our weight. And there's so many examples of Muskegon just constantly punching above their weight. But it's also, I think it's because we're so gritty. We've got that chip on our shoulder. We're going to roll up our sleeves. We're going to get things done. throw any other cliche that you can in there. But that's what I think sums up community for me is collectively working together in a gritty fashion to get things done.
I'd have to agree with that. Punching above our weight kind of defines who we are. We haven't always had struggles with the local media in terms of covering the risers, but in the last few years, budget cuts to our local paper have mandated that, not every game is covered, but for the first few years for the risers, like every single game, indoor or outdoor, complete and total coverage. Now we have to remind MLive that Muskegon is Muskegon, not Grand Rapids, and that doing things like posting news about GRFC, that's not going to fly. That's not going to be what happens there. And we all push in the same direction with that, but we also push in the same direction, in many positive ways in terms of those group cleanups that we do, in terms of providing youth soccer options that are affordable to people in the inner city, in terms of, providing a reason for people to stay here. When I was growing up, and I think John would tell you the same, a lot of my classmates were like, I can't wait to leave. And there was some reason behind that. Like we talked about the downtown being knocked down, the industry leaving, things of that nature. But the recreational opportunities here are tremendous. The atmosphere of having the willingness to roll up your sleeves and do things here is tremendous. No one is outworking Muskegon. So I think for me, in terms of defining community, it's everybody getting in that boat and rowing in the same direction and collectively pulling things forward by the skin of our teeth, whether it's, reminding people that the risers are here and that we are behind them, whether it's making sure that a street by the highway, which is the entrance to a town, looks like the entrance to a town and not a wastebasket, whether it's providing those youth soccer options, whether it's, educating each other through exchanges, through people that we would normally never meet or never talk to. I think, collectively pulling together in that same direction, even if it's little things, even if it's big things, is what defines community for me.
Well, that's great. So this weekend, Keyworth Stadium, 7:30 local time in Michigan, Detroit City versus the Muskegon Risers. You can catch all the action on the CW, I believe, is going to pick that match up for the UWS. So that's actually really cool. There's some media attention there. Let's move into the hot seat, gentlemen. We're going to put some questions at you, see how you can answer and hold on to it. So here we go. If you had to wear a rival club's kit, what kit are you wearing?
Fulton County, I think. The purple. We went to purple, so probably Oakland.
I've always been a fan of light blue. So I do like Lansing United's colors. Detroit City have had some pretty slick designs over the years as well. But if push came to shove, if you were to ask me which one I would want to wear on a day-to-day basis, probably Lansing United based on the color scheme for me.
Favorite color smoke bomb?
Green.
Yeah, green.
Right. Yeah, the blue is nice when it works, but the blue tends to get pushed around a bit by the wind somehow. The green seems to stay together. I don't know why that is, but yeah, the green for me. The blue is a nice accent, but the green for me.
Favorite sports movie of all time?
Oh,
Jack to a King, Swansea City story.
I was thinking something like Rangers, but
well, yeah, I mean, there's lots of, like, being a hockey guy, Miracle also pops in my head, Slapshot.
Pops
in my head. Oh yeah, there are Muskegon connections there. The Hanson brothers, they played for Muskegon professional hockey team. Some of them still live here, actually. Yeah. One of them is an electrician, Jeff Carlson. There are some roots there, Muskegon-wise. There's a lot that runs deep in terms of Muskegon sports history. We have the top 2 minor league goal scorers of all time that played for Muskegon hockey teams, Robin Bouchard and Jacques Callender. So there's a lot of hockey here, but going soccer, I would go Jack King, and going other, I would probably go Slapshot for the Muskegon connection.
If Ted Lasso was the gaffer of the Muskegon Risers and you needed to fire Ted Lasso, who do you replace him with and why?
Shane Fairfield. Shane Fairfield is the coach of the Muskegon High School Big Reds. He is from the Mike Holmes coaching tree, which is descended from the Muskegon Catholic Central football team that has won the second most state titles in Michigan state football history. So you can see how invested this community is in high school football, and how, presenting soccer, and why I thought there would be no turnout is because historically, like, football and hockey are everything here. So like Ted Lasso, we got a million other football coaches here that could do the same thing. Shane does a tremendous job in terms of not just coaching the team, but being a father figure to some of the households that some of the boys come from at Muskegon High School. And John can attest to that. John's children go to Muskegon Public Schools, and you can see what a positive influence that Shane has been over the years. So I'd go Shane. What about you, John?
Yeah. I would pick Chuck Daly, head coach of the Detroit Pistons Bad Boys franchise, inject some toughness in there and kind of have that Bill Lambier, put fear of God in the other team. So I'd like to see Chuck Daly be resurrected from the dead and be the coach that plays Ted Lasso.
I like it.
Favorite away stadium to visit?
So far, like I said, we don't get a lot of places where we're seeing a lot of fans. We've been to Toledo. It was a hot summer day, but there were only 50 people there. We've been to Carpathia. It was a cloudy day, and there were maybe 30 people there. We were at Corktown this past week. There were 50 people there, maybe. So I think we haven't played against them in a very long time, since the second year of the Risers men's team, but it wasn't Keyworth at the time. It was Cass Tech High School, but it's probably got to be Keyworth.
Mm-hmm. Yep, agree.
Well, John, Darby, I really appreciate you both giving me the opportunity to interview and talk to you guys about Port City supporters as well as the Muskegon Risers. I wish you guys the best of luck this coming season, and hopefully we can get some results that are positive and moving in the right direction starting this weekend. 7:30 local time against Detroit City at Keyworth Stadium. So best of luck to you guys in the rest of the season, and we'll be chatting soon.
Thank you, Jonathan. Let's run it back for Risers indoor season. If you want something to do in the off season, let's run it back for the women's indoor season.
Always down. Always interested in doing something like that. Well, John, Darby, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us this evening for UWS Weekly. You can follow all things UWS and UWS2 on their social media pages and send your questions for future shows as well. Join us this Saturday morning for the UWS Kickoff Show, powered by Rain Total Body Fuel at 6 a.m. Pacific, as we get you primed for match day 2 of UWS matches. So until then, cheers, everyone. Have a great rest of the evening.